If you're an attorney in the pursuit of a successful law practice, fulfilling career, and the life of your dreams, this podcast has it all. Behind the Bench gives you great tools to overcome the unique challenges you face every day as a law firm owner. Welcome to Behind the Bench podcast with your host, Josh Konigsberg, author, partner, and co-founder of Law Firm Marketing Pros and lifelong entrepreneur.
Josh Konigsberg from Law Firm Marketing Pros, back with another Behind the Bench podcast episode. Super excited today with my guest, Dennis Yu. Dennis is a legend in my mind. He is a co-author of the #1 best-selling books on Amazon, on Facebook ads, on Google ads, and now TikTok ads, co-author with Perry Marshall, and we all know who Perry is. So Dennis, super excited to have you here. Thank you and welcome.
Awesome to spend time with you again, Josh.
Yeah, great. Always great to see you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the space of digital marketing, the arena of digital marketing?
I'm just an old-time search engine engineer. I built the analytics at Yahoo, which was the dominant search engine about 25 years ago. And ever since then, whenever there's data, like social media came in, when Facebook opened their platform in 2007, we were there. And I've been sort of the engineer, data geek behind the scenes as people are running ads, building websites, trying to do SEO, this kind of thing. So I have the engineer's perspective.
So you're the smartest guy in the room.
I'm just the mechanic. There's a lot of salespeople that are very good at selling, right? You go to the showroom and the sales guy has got a great suit on like you do. But the mechanic is the one who actually works on the car and can tell you what's actually going on with the engine, and is that other guy actually doing what he said said he's going to do or is doing.
Love it. So what inspired you to get into a career in that type of engineering?
Well, I didn't speak English when I was here. I didn't until I was 6. And so I was an introvert. So things like public speaking or making friends, I didn't really understand because kids made fun of me, but I was good at math.
Okay.
And that was like my way as this Asian kid to like get back at those other people, because at least maybe I didn't have any friends, but I could just beat everyone on the math test. So I was number 5 in the nation in math counts, and I traveled, did math competitions. I represented California in the National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. in 1988. And I was just one of those like mathlete sorts of people. And that naturally, because my mom ran a system at Honeywell in defense engineering and whatever, she had access to these computers. And I just found computers to be an amazing thing. 35 plus years ago, I built my first website, and lawyers would pay me to build websites. We built the intranet for Raytheon, which is a multi-billion-dollar defense contractor. Then all these other things happened, like Yahoo, American Airlines. We did the analytics for Starbucks and Nike and Quiznos and like all. And I'm like this kid in the candy store, because whenever there's data, I know that I can come in and do my thing, which is, the mechanic opens the hood and I can see all these different systems. And it doesn't matter what the salespeople say or what the consultants say, because the data, like, you can't argue the data. Like I would, turn in English papers and get C's and D's because the professor didn't like me. But if I solve the math problem and I have the correct answer, you have to give me full credit. And I just love the fact that if the answer's 5, the answer's 5 and no one can argue it.
That's great. That's fascinating. I love to hear stuff like that. And it's funny today to see your Facebook and how outgoing you are, and actually meeting you personally and how outgoing you are. I would never think that you were an introvert. So that's, my hat's off to you, man. Kudos. That's great to hear, man. So, how exactly did you transition away from Yahoo into working for yourself?
We had the opportunity to acquire Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, when he'd come into Yahoo, and me being the data guy, I had to put together models to figure out what is a social network worth. And I thought in my, younger sort of hubris that we could build our own social network. Why would we pay $1 billion for what this kid built out of Harvard? We can build, we're engineers, we can build our own thing. And so I've always been a builder, not just some idea guy. Like I want to build actual systems. And when I was at Yahoo, a lot of us I was like one of the few people in the beginning that still stuck around. And so the joke among us was that those who stuck around were failed entrepreneurs, because all the other people went off to, like my buddy Brian and Jan, we used to play Frisbee twice a week. They started WhatsApp and sold that thing for $17 billion, and all these other entrepreneurs, and I was one of the few that didn't, until eventually I was like, you know what? I have so many ideas. I don't want to try to, like, I wanted to do food.yahoo.com because I love food. I love restaurants, and I wanted to build a whole portal just for restaurants. Like, this is before Yelp or these other things. And there was so much bureaucracy. I couldn't get any of my ideas through. And it was just meetings all day. And it just, all these like marketing people would come in, and these manager people that didn't actually know anything, but they were managers from some other company, and they had managers of managers. And
I love it. You're right.
I'd go into a meeting. I was at Yahoo. This happened multiple times. And there'd be this meeting, and there'd be 14 people in the room, and they'd say, there's the introductions. People show up late, so 15 minutes later is when you start the meeting, and then they're just talking about nothing, because meetings always blow an hour for some dumb reason. Like, people want to just blow an hour, even though there's like nothing to do, no agenda. And so I would just say, hey guys, don't mean to be rude, but if you need me, like, come and get me. I'm over there in my office working, writing code. So if you need me, come get me, but I'm not going to sit here in this meeting with these 14 other people. And who the heck are you? And who are you? And who are you? And what do you do? Oh, I'm a product manager, or I'm this manager of this other thing. I'm an ops manager. I'm like, what do you do? You don't write any code? Do you actually build anything, or do you just have meetings? So I eventually left Yahoo and started building things for friends of mine. And my first client was Grameen Foundation. You ever heard of them? Dr. Yunus won a Nobel Prize for microfinance. And we built part of their website. We did live blogging from the Nobel ceremony, which is really cool, right? That's where they announced the thing that had never been done before. And we started running ads. I love Google ads. I was one of the biggest spenders on Google ads. I did a bunch of affiliate marketing, all performance marketing, right? Not like spending brand dollars, but because I was speaking at conferences representing Yahoo, this is before Google was a big thing. I already had my network, and like people already knew who I was. So I was doing consulting on the side. So I just loved when friends would start businesses, grow them, and then I would come in as the mechanic, open up the hood and figure out what's wrong with their ads, or why is their website loading slow, or dissecting what a competitor's doing. And that always involved just pulling in data, which is what I'm really good at. So we have teams of people that pull in data. Like I was just on the phone an hour ago with a client in LA, and he spends 1.7 million as a PI on Google ads, and they didn't have a dashboard. Their founder for the last 20 years, I mean, they had stuff at, Litify, they had someone doing SEO, and these are all friends of ours, like Steve Wiedemann does their SEO, Ben Fisher does their local service ads, there's all these other folks, but they'd never created a dashboard. So their founder was pulling his hair out and getting mad because they didn't know what was going on. Like, oh, it's an intake problem. No, the issue is our lead quality's not good. No, it's because our PPC is, or because of the weather, because like, what was the issue? Our phone numbers aren't working. It's like, well, with the dashboard, we could see all of that. And that way there's none of this politics or, needle in a haystack. So
the data is the data, man. That's right.
Yeah. And like, why I always start with the data. I don't care. Well, no, I focus just on PI, or I am the best PPC guy on the planet, or like, I don't care what you say about yourself. Let's look at your data.
Yeah, right. Love it. Good stuff. You've mentioned Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg a couple times, and I was going to save this, but since it's come up a couple times, tell everybody about your conversation with Mark Zuckerberg on CNN, where you guys got into, I don't want to say it was an argument, but a little bit of a debate.
Well, so you know how everyone gets their moment of fame, right? You never know when it's going to come. But when this Cambridge Analytica thing happened, CNN called me to be in the studio. And I was super nervous because this is live TV. This is not like a podcast like we're doing now where I can flub the words and say whatever and we can fix it. Live in front of millions of people globally, not like local in Atlanta or LA. This is global.
Right.
And it was a setup. I didn't realize it until afterwards, but they brought me in as the data expert on, privacy and social media to say, should Facebook be regulated? In other words, with Cambridge Analytica happening and all these bad things happening, people hating on Mark Zuckerberg, it was a complete setup. So when I gave my little spiel and then they turned to Zuckerberg and said, so what do you think? Do you think Facebook should be regulated? Well, and then he was set up, right? So I got all these angry texts from other Facebook executives saying, dude, you can't be saying stuff like that on TV. I'm like, look, if CNN calls you in to be an expert, you're not going to say no to that. And of course, I'm going to say the obvious things. I said, like, well, do you think cigarette companies should be able to set their own regulation? What do you think about the consumers that don't really understand what's going on with their data? What about these kids that are 13 years old and, they're having ads that are manipulating them and the news feed is, created to be addictive. And I explained how addictive the algorithms are, which everyone loved. And that works so well. I thought I kind of flubbed it because you saw in the first 10 seconds, I was dumbfounded because I had lack of sleep and nervous. And, I didn't realize which camera was on and I was an idiot. But I thought I failed that one. It's like, oh, crap, I messed this up because I was just like, the thing was in my ear. Because, you have the conversation with the host, but there's this thing in your ear where the producer guy's, telling you, okay, we're cutting to a commercial in 10 seconds. Okay, now Dennis is on. Okay, now ask him about that. And like, I'm trying to listen to the thing in my ear while I'm talking to the guy, and there's all the stress, and I didn't have enough sleep because, I was afraid I would miss my alarm clock in the morning to get up at 5 a.m. to go to the studio and all this. Like, there's just like too much going on. I thought I did a poor job, but they invited me 4 times back into the studio. Every time some nonsense happened, like even with Twitter, some nonsense happened, with the data leak. And they asked me, so Dennis, what do you think about Twitter's data leak and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm happy to answer that question. Why not? Right?
Yeah, right. Right. It's funny when you said setup, you weren't set up. They set Mark
Zuckerberg was set up
with somebody who was really a true data analyst and could really, I guess put him in a corner and, sounds like his.
But it set me up to win though. Right. And so I don't,
you did win.
You're not going to fall for like whatever random stuff. I'm not like one of these, conspiracy people, but the media is going to paint a particular angle. Like USA Today will call me and they'll say, hey, this thing is going on at LinkedIn and we need someone to give this particular point of view. Can you give it? And I'll say, I could, and I understand what you're trying to get, but that's just frankly incorrect. And then the reporter will say, it'll be a staff reporter. They'll say, yes, but the director of USA Today, West Coast said that we need this is a story we're trying to push. This is the angle we want. And I'll say, well, okay, here, I'll give you a quote, but I'll also caveat it because I know that's what you want, but it's not a real story. You guys are just trying to chase this thing.
That unfortunately, that's mainstream media today. So
yeah.
Okay, so as you transitioned into your business, can you tell us exactly what your business is today?
Ads and analytics optimization. Everyone's got lots of systems. So you've got Google Ads and your website. You have vendors that have different systems. You have custom built things. You have some kind of CRM. You have like Five9 or CallRail or Litify, case management systems. And all these systems have data and it all needs to be put into one place. And then other people that have different slices where you outsource the intake, someone else is trying to do the local SEO, this other vendor is doing this other thing, you have an in-house team creating content, you have a podcast, and all these things are being measured according to some random thing like how many pieces of content did we post? How many phone calls did we answer within a minute or whatnot? But very few of them go all the way back to the top line revenue. Are we referring out the right cases? I mean, you can game any metric. The metric of, what percent of calls were converted. Well, what if one agent just marked all the calls as, not qualified to try to fake increase their numbers? Like, we understand that humans will try to game the system, you know what I mean? To make their thing look better. Like social media people will buy followers and say, we got a whole bunch of impressions and likes and whatever. Yeah, but did that actually drive anything towards the bottom line? There's one person who I'm not going to mention his name, but you know who he is. And he thinks he's really good at law firm SEO. And he was charging a friend of mine $70,000 a month to do SEO. I came in and within 5 minutes, I found all he did was put up a bunch of glossary pages that ranked on, truck driving related terms, but they were all like, how do I get a commercial driving, they're not people who got in accidents. These are people who are trying to become truck drivers. And he claimed, success, a big win on SEO. and he's just gaming the system. So I believe that when you have a dashboard, as simple as it sounds, really hard to build, that looks across everything, you can hold everybody accountable instead of, well, so-and-so uses so-and-so firm, so I'm going to use them too.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
No, this software is really good because it was, all right, because I went to this guy's conference and he had Aerosmith play. Well, I'm sure the guy spent a bunch of money at his conference, but does that mean, and maybe the agency is great, but how about the person working on your account? Are those good people? Because every agency, every vendor has a few good people, like your firm, my firm. We all have some people who are like, heavy hitter, A-list people. And then we have other people that are kind of new and learning and whatnot. So you never want to be the law firm when you get the junior people, but somebody's got to get them, right?
That's right. That's right.
You know the joke, like, what do you call the person who graduates last from medical school?
Doctor.
Isn't that crazy?
Right. Yeah.
So we just like, don't blame the scale if you're fat. Don't blame me. I'm the scale, right?
Right. So you have built a dashboard, an analytics dashboard that's gathering data from multiple channels.
Yeah.
That funnels up to top line revenue. Is that a great description of it?
Yep.
What's it called?
Think of a funnel. We call it your content factory, or other people just call it the dashboard. The folks at Nike call it Dennis's dashboard, and Nike calls it the footprint, which is funny because whatever shoe company, but the foot, like Nike, for example, there's the Nike brand. There's all the, Nike football, basketball, soccer, Nike Japan, all the different social channels, all the athletes, so they map out all their stuff. Law firms, though, it's what is your intake system? Where are you tracking your phone calls? If you're using like Allitify, we have to tie the tracking codes back to where the money's being spent and what phone number is on, what agent answered the phone, whether it was raining that day, what type of case it was, because, dog bites versus accidental death. I mean, there's all these there's different ways of looking at the data. There's, you're passing stuff out to outsource intake versus in-house intake or overnight. Like, there's so many different ways of cutting the data to say whether things are performing or not. And that requires, just as an engineer, you have to build systems that put all the data in one place, and then you can put your Tableau or your Google Data Studio or, Power BI or whatever your MicroStrategy, like Crystal Reports, whatever you want on top of this big repository. But if you don't get all the data in one place, it doesn't matter what reporting tool you have. You know what I mean? There's so many, like, I can use agency analytics. I can build this custom other thing inside Excel. But if I don't get all the data in one place, it doesn't matter how many ways I try to reformat that data. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. So for those of you in the audience who don't know, agency analytics is a analytics dashboard designed and white labeled specifically for digital marketing agencies like law firm marketing pros. So if I'm understanding you correctly, Dennis, what you're saying is that we could use your dashboard as a adjunct to agency analytics to get more granular.
Yeah. Because if you put all the data into the middle, you can do different kinds of computations, different kinds of analysis than just like a dashboard that has different tiles that shows just like one metric at one time pulled from a different system. That's easy to build, right? That's out of the box. You can use Zapier and whatever tools, or, Report Garden, whatever, not just agency analytics. That's easy to build. I mean, that's built into High Level, built into Vendasta, built into all these other tools that agencies like to use. But if you need to get to the true heartbeat of a business, you've got to take those cases that are signed and track them all the way back up through intake, who answered the phone, how long it took, how many touches there were, back to the marketing source. And the marketing source can be multiple, because they could have seen some billboards and then they went to the website and then they called this phone number and then they, whatever it is. It's hard. There's multiple touches on that journey, and Google has made it difficult. Apple's made it difficult by hiding all the data, right?
That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And there's ways around that. Like, when the click comes in, you assign a first-party cookie based on the tracking URL. Like, there's all these things, right?
Yep. That's one of the big challenges that we're faced with on a daily basis. So, and ultimately, the attribution is going to go to some channel, but there could have been as many as 21 touches or more to get to that final
especially if you're running offline. So what about guys that are doing billboards?
Buses.
Right? How do you attribute the value of that? What if you write these checks because you're making donations and giving out backpacks to these kids that are poor or whatever, right? How do you attribute that?
That's right. So, and how do you attribute
that? There's 3 ways of doing it, and it depends on how sophisticated you are. So the most sophisticated way is multi-channel lift testing. So that's when you run a grid, like a Taguchi grid, if you're a statistics person or whatnot. And if you're in multiple markets, this is especially powerful. Like we did this for Quiznos, Allstate Insurance, and you turn certain things on and off in different markets to be able to measure the lift. Lift is the increase that is attributed to a particular channel. Like, with Rosetta Stone, we turn Google ads off selectively in different markets on different keywords to see what the impact is. Now, the reason why lift testing is more valuable than attribution, we can go on for hours about attribution, but attribution is fundamentally flawed because it assumes that I can tie a particular user's behavior all the way through to a signed case. That is no longer possible now because of what Google has done with these cohorts, Apple iOS 14, all these data things make it impossible to properly tie a particular user's behavior. So the way to do that is you assign segments. So based on time of day. So I can even odd my ads on Facebook or Google to where certain things get turned on and off on even hours. And I measure what the difference, just like, a drug test. Let's say I have this new pill for whatever, right? I'm going to randomize double blind, whereas some people randomly get the drug and some people get the placebo. And then I figure out, test and control, right? How the test did versus the control. So lift testing allows me to do that across multiple channels. But that requires that your analytics is set up properly. And then where you're advertising, you have to be able to turn things on and off. So if you're doing TV ads, you're buying a bunch of spot TV, then I have to be able to pulse in different markets on and off to be able to measure what that lift is. And most of the lift, Josh, as you know, but most lawyers don't know, is coming from your own name. So when people are typing in Josh Konigsberg or Daryl Isaacs or, Bobby Sadian or, the face on TV, because most PIs, right? It's the face of their name. They love putting their name, and I get it, right? But when you audit your Google Analytics or your SEO company or whoever did your website, you're going to find most of those cases came from branded search, right? Which is your name. So of the branded search, how much came from the fact that you're running these radio ads all the time and you have all the billboards everywhere? Do you know how to measure that? Because if you pull all the offline media, you pull all the billboards, you pull all that kind of stuff, your branded search will drop, right? But
Dennis,
what the impact is, and the SEO companies take credit. They say, oh yeah, we drove this many cases and it came through Google. Yes, but how much was branded search? Because branded search is different than non-brand, isn't it?
Sure it is. It's so. This is gold for where we're at right now and some of the conversations that we're having with our clients, because it's the challenge that we're confronted with. So you talked about, let's say a Quiznos where there's obviously or Rosetta Stone with a much larger budget. How do you manage that within a smaller market? Even I've got a client I'm thinking of in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
small market, but a decent sized budget. And he's actually expanded throughout North Carolina. But yeah, so how do you manage it?
There's a few different ways. So number one, the best way, which is what I prefer, but it's not always possible, is if they're in multiple major metros. So Wilmington, I don't know what the different suburbs are within that, but I would guess that's one DMA, direct marketing area. Mm-hmm. That's like one TV geographic area. Mm-hmm. But if they were in multiple areas in, is it Delaware, North Carolina, in multiple areas, then we could create sort of a grid and test between them. But if we don't, and they're just in one city, because a lot of the PIs, there's like one big PI per state, and there's 2 or 3 main areas within the state. But if you're only in one area, you have one officer, say you have one GMB, then what you do is you do this alternating on-off. So you can turn certain campaigns or certain ad groups on and off based on hour of the day, or based on randomized based on the day of the week. So then you could see how much traffic is coming on brand search versus non-brand search, or coming on Google ads versus Facebook ads versus other. The key thing is I'm looking for the difference in unattributed, Because when you run a source medium report, which is harder to find now in GA4 because we've been forced to migrate to GA4, unattributed is really showing me the impact of brand reputation. And also the number of people that are searching on the law firm's name or the founder of the law firm is driven by offline media and unattributed, right? There's different ways of reducing unattributed, which is direct none, down to 5% or less. Most people, their direct none is 10%, 15%. Some are even 30%, which is showing a track. If it's over 10%, there's a tracking issue, right? Multi-domains or emails that are not being coded or something, which just shows up as direct none, right? Where we don't know the referring source, right? But the biggest way to test is literally being able to turn ads on and off based on some sort of, like even hours are on and odd hours are off. The most accurate way is to turn a particular channel on and off completely, but most businesses practically can't do that because they need the leads, and I don't want to destroy my numbers for this month by running this test to get the lift. Because you understand, if you want to measure accurately, definitively, where, marketing performance, you have to do lift testing. There's no way around it. Lift testing is measuring the increment, because if you don't do lift testing, then you will say all leads and phone calls and revenue and cases, whatever, from a particular source, all of them came from this channel. So if there's a touch through Google Ads, then not you guys as law firm marketing pros, but other random agencies or PPC people or SEO people would say, everything that came through the channel, I take complete credit. Really? Well, if we turned off, theoretically, all SEO efforts, would the number of leads that we get through SEO be zero the next day?
No,
it wouldn't. So that it falls, it will go down, of course.
Yeah, right. It dies its natural death eventually.
Yeah, so it settles down to what's called the residual, right? Here's zero. Here's where you were. You turn something off, turn like Google Ads off. Will we no longer get anything PPC? No, it'll fall down until it hits this residual. And then the difference between that residual level and where we were is the lift. So what we're trying to do is measure that lift. Because the biggest one where there's cannibalization is brand search. So of course you should bid on your own name, right? Just like competitors bid on your name, that you got to protect your name. And the biggest complaint people say is, yeah, but I'm already ranking number one on my own name, which is what the SEO people like to say, right? Okay, you're ranking number one on your name, but if you bid on your name, are you not getting incremental traffic that you wouldn't have gotten? Yes. The question is, how much overlap or cannibalization are you getting? And we've done studies with Google, and they say 20%. I think it's closer to 25%. Okay. So if you drove an incremental 100 leads, you really only drove, well, according to the PPC, whatever, then really it's only 75, because 25 you would have gotten because you already ranked number one, right? Right. But so, how many agencies, law firms realize that when you do a channel, there is cannibalization with other channels? They don't. And how do you measure the ROI if you don't know what the cannibalization?
I've got some coaches out there that call measuring ROI a fool's errand, because if you're doing enough branding, and he's very, very aggressive, and by the way, very successful, in his own right as an attorney, and his law firm has been incredibly successful, and he's also coaching attorneys to be very successful, to get from that $3-4 million peak that they seem to get stuck at to up over 8 figures. We call that, by the way, the halo effect, meaning this: the more that you do, the more that you're found, the more that you're seen, the more touch points there are, the more lift you're going to get at the end of the day. Right. I
view it as this. I view SEO, which is getting results in search, getting more traffic and business from search queries and whatnot, showing up more, knowledge panels, all that. I view it as an extension of PR and reputation. If you have a great reputation, people know who you are because you're on TV all the time, because you take care of your clients, because you have 5 stars on Google and all this reviews and all, because people actually know who you are and they love you, then the efforts that you do, Josh, with your firm amplify what's there. So if I was a brand new PI, because I know the rules have changed in different states on who, you don't have to be a lawyer anymore to open up firms. But let's just say, I decided to open up a PI firm, and I have no reputation and no cases, and I've never, nothing. But I know a lot about ads and all that. I would be at disadvantage because people don't know who I am.
Right.
So
That's right.
SEO is amplifying what's already there. So if you already have a great reputation and people talk about you in a good way, and I Google your name and all kinds of good things pop up, then doing more effort to get more search exposure is just an all digital marketing is just an amplifier of what's already there. If you suck, you're a restaurant and your food is horrible and it's all 1 stars on Yelp and whatever, running ads is just going to rub salt into the wound.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I like to say, who's going to the restaurant with the 1-star reputation average, right? Nobody.
Right.
So they're out of business. So I love that. I love that direction. And man, we went down a rabbit hole, didn't we? Oh my goodness. So what would you say to a smaller law firm? I just recently signed up a small personal injury firm, in a 60,000 population market, never done any advertising before, settled a large case, want to get aggressive. We have a general rule of thumb for clients like that on where the marketing investment should be in terms of percent digital versus traditional, and then it switches over time. Do you have any feel for, can you speak to that at all in terms of?
So in a small market where they already have a big win, I would shamelessly promote that one big win. I would tell the story about them. I'd put it on the website and social media. I'd run $1 a day inside that neighborhood, which would work on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and whatnot. And I believe that will drive more brand search, and that will make local service ads more effective. I think for PIs in general, LSA is the most powerful thing. But LSA, even though it's technically advertising, folks who are really good at LSA, I've interviewed them on my podcast, they consider it an extension of SEO because the ads are automatically made, and the reviews and like how fast you answer the phone, like all these things are tied into that. So if they've got, even if they're small, but if they really are taking care of their clients and they get clients to say good things about how they've handled everything and they answer the phone and they, first call does it all the way through, then I think that search and social will work really well together. Even if there's another big lawyer in town who's been around a lot longer, you're going to win in the Google game because you're telling stories and setting the signal. The big law firms I've seen typically hire some other agency they think is very reputable, but who is not in their city. So therefore, they can't send the signals that are necessary from someone who actually is in that city, from their team members to the founder who is, hobnobbing with other businesses in that city, collecting videos, images, posting on social. As you know, right, Google changed EAT to EEAT, and that extra E is based on experience, which is not based on auto-generated AI content. It's based on actual things that are collected on cell phones that show up in social media. They get repurposed into blog posts, reposted to the GMB, turned into ads, right? You're sending that signal. We're not trying to trick Google. We're trying to show Google that this is who we are. We're trying to expose what's already there, right? Not like auto-generate like the guy I told you about that was charging $70,000 a month was creating all these fake glossary pages. They were super thin content generated by VAs and AI. And it was terrible content because it didn't have the actual experience in there. It didn't have pictures, and photos, and videos from people in that particular city who got injured in a car accident, motorcycle, truck driving, accidental death, like none of those things, right? And it was sort of working, and I've seen it work in smaller markets where there's less competition. I've asked my friends at Google about this, and they say, yeah, we allow people to do the blog spam and that auto-generated stuff. But with generative AI, which is now starting to roll out, SGE, all that is going out the window. And these guys are going to get crushed. I'm excited for that.
Well, that ultimately leads to a better user experience.
Yeah. And that's what I did when I was at Yahoo. Our whole approach, my team's job was to create better search experiences, which is basically penalizing the spammers. And most of these SEO people don't think they're spammers, but they are, because they're trying to trick us. I can see right through that. You think our teams of engineers can't spot your triangular linking and your private networks and your auto-generated AI stuff? We absolutely can see that.
Sure. Yeah. And if you can see it, guess who else can see it? Google. Yep. Right. Exactly. So with let's get back to your dashboard. So do you have a specific niche, Are you white labeling it, or is it a combination of direct end user?
We like to work with agency partners because we don't have any salespeople. We're a team of engineers and data geeks like me. People tend to hire other people that are like them.
Right.
And we're here just to expose the data. And we work with a lot of agencies and some of the big law firms, some of the big medical guys, but typically the folks that have higher end packages where there's some kind of lead, right? So basically doctors and lawyers I know it's like a cliche, but we basically work with doctors and lawyers because they have enough, they're spending enough money, they're sophisticated enough that they live across multiple systems. And they often have this issue of many vendors and many systems, and they add up the number of leads and sales or whatever from the different reports, and they add it up, and that's 3 times more than the actual business is generating. So they're like, okay, well, what do we do? Just divide everyone's number by 3?
So, Dennis, you just hit the nail on the head with our synergy. So earlier today, I had a discovery call with a client, and they've got 5 different vendors for their digital.
Yeah.
And they reached out to me because they were looking to consolidate.
Mm-hmm.
So surprisingly familiar, right?
Well, I believe businesses should, and I know you promote this because you're one of the good guys, but we believe the clients should own their own marketing. Mm-hmm. They should have access. Like, imagine this. Right. If you're a PI, ask to make sure you have admin on all your stuff and watch the excuses come through. Oh, no, we gave you you can log into this dashboard, does everything together, like whatever. Like, they won't give you access to the actual Google ads, into the WordPress. We're like, you need to own all the assets. And then you need to go, this is my favorite thing to do in an audit, come in and go to like the Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever and click on the change history. You know what I'm getting at, right, Josh? Mm-hmm. And see, when was the last time anyone touched anything? Now, there's auto-generated reports that these vendors will have because they have different tools that will put their vendor name on the thing and it'll spit out the thing every week, or like ranking reports, especially SEO tools are really good at doing this sort of thing. And it'll send out all these reports like 20 pages long, this big export printed out, whatever it is, right? But what I'm looking for is, did anyone actually do anything? What actions were taken? And is there an explanation from that vendor of why they built this page, or why they tuned this ad, or why they... If there's no explanation and no thoughtful analysis, then the odds are it's either no work is happening, which is most of the time, or B, it's very low-grade stuff like adding keywords or like changing a few title tags or doing some stuff that doesn't really move the needle. So there could be a lot of activity because the reports from Ahrefs or Majestic or SEMrush or whatever say, oh, we have these different errors, go in and fix these meta descriptions. Like, okay, but how often is that really going to move the needle?
That's great stuff. And, it's funny, we welcome those audits because we know how much work we do and how much work, especially now. I mean, 3 years ago, it wasn't nearly as much work as it is today for people.
Yeah, and then agencies who welcome the audit know they're doing good work, and they know the audit. It's just like, I take an MRI, and I'll say, like, you know what, Josh? It looks like you're healthy. Looks like you're not eating junk food, and, it looks like you're taking care of your body, and your triglycerides are healthy. That's good. But most agencies, when we do that scan, the numbers aren't very good. And then trying to blame us, right? Like, dude, we're looking at your data. Why are you getting mad?
Messenger. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's your data. I mean,
right.
You've just never seen it before.
So just changing gears a little bit, what motivates you to be successful and win for your clients?
I'm real simple. I'm going to create 1 million jobs. And at first I wanted to create just like 5 jobs by hiring other people. But I had a mentor who was the CEO of American Airlines, and he mentored me and taught me how to become more of a people person, how to communicate, how not just to be an engineer. It's like being right-handed and left-handed. You favor your, right hand. So I favor the analytics side, but I learned about the people side and whatnot from mentors. And I believe that mentors unlock amazing things out of all of us at whatever level. And the more senior people are, the more important it is to have mentors. And I found that mentors were lacking in the school system. And so we've established relationships with 700 universities where they're using our training programs, and the teachers are mentoring these other kids, and they're starting micro agencies while they're still in school, which is way better than just reading the book and writing an essay, but they're actually applying the things that we teach. And I love seeing that. That's why I speak at conferences. You and I are Josh Nelson's 7-figure agency and these other places. Yesterday, I gave a keynote address with my friends in Pakistan. It was virtual. but 5,000 people were there. And we're training up these folks in Pakistan on how to do things the right way according to our checklists, so that we know that they're able to pass the audit. If we scan that site and scan the social, they're going to pass the audit. Because here's, like, imagine I give you, Josh, the exam, right? Could be the bar or the, whatever, the SAT. And I tell you what all the questions are in advance. And you just have to study these different things to know that you're going to pass the test. Is that cheating?
Not at all.
So I want to create mentorship at scale so that instead of other people, because right now, especially in the world of PI and digital, you have all these people all saying how amazing they are, and they're basically just blowing smoke up each other's butts. But why don't we have real measurement? Why don't we switch from voodoo to MRIs and actual data, instead of like who talks the fastest or who has the biggest conference or who appears to be the most successful and talks the biggest game? Why not just like the data speaks for itself? So my mission is sort of like this. When I was a 6-year-old and I was being made fun of, I thought, I'm going to get back at these people because they're shinier, they talk better than me, they have better clothes, but I can beat them because I got the right answer and because I actually am doing a better job. And I want to root for the people who they're not as flashy, but they do good work, and they care about their clients, and they care about growing a law firm the right way. And they really care about reputation in the community. I want to see those people win, not the people that talk the loudest or have the best TV commercials. Nothing wrong with that. But this is like my way of letting the good guys win by just turning the light on in the industry and training up everybody on analytics and letting them see what's in their Google Analytics and inside their WordPress and all that. And I love seeing that light bulb moment when people actually see their data for the first time.
So good, Dennis. So what keeps you up at night?
There's a lot of people that depend on me. And I'm sure you have that too, right? As your firm grows, you have more and more people that depend on you. And I'm worried, I know it's like this irrational imposter syndrome fear, but I'm worried of letting them down. I'm worried that we're missing the boat. I'm worried that we're not good enough. I'm worried that like someone's going to build something better than us. And so I'm worried, like when I speak on stage, that maybe, somebody will ask a question and I won't have the answer and I'll be embarrassed. And I've spoken at over 800 conferences in the last 30 years, and it's never happened to me once. But I think it's because I have this paranoid fear that it causes me to always try to make sure that our stuff is solid, right? So if anyone were to audit us, we would pass.
So that, to me, that's a true entrepreneurial emotion that's driving you. And I think that most entrepreneurs feel that way. I'm a big fan of Ed Mylett and his podcast. And, I was listening to him the other day, and basically, I don't know if that was the same question, but I think he just said, well, here's what keeps me up at night. And it's the fear of. And so, and as successful and as big as he is, it's a real thing for us as entrepreneurs. So
Ed's one of my coaching clients. I love him to death.
Oh, he is?
He told me one time that, because he came to my 3-day seminar and said it was the best thing he'd ever been to. But he said he's next door neighbors with Tony in Coeur d'Alene. And then Tony was saying, Ed, you should put yourself out there on social media. You should, and Ed basically didn't want to expose his private life. And Tony said to him, Ed told me this, Ed, you're being selfish, because if you truly want to help all these other people, you're going to show people where you're at, and you're going to encourage them through your own action of sharing where you're struggling, of sharing the different things, stuff that you're dealing with. And back then, Ed had nobody on his team. He was the one, because I couldn't believe, he told me, he says, yeah, Dennis, I stay up till 4 p.m. and I'm answering the social media posts, and I'll get, a young boy who's 15 and he's thinking about committing suicide. And I have to be there for him. And I feel like there's no one there, and I'm the last line of defense for him. And so I spend my time taking care of these other people and thinking, that's incredible, Ed. Like, I know that you wanted to launch the mastermind. This is before he did the thing like with, Andy Frisella and these other folks. But you see the people who truly care. And then you look back at Ed's background, right? When he was a little boy, and how he wants to be able to help other kids that were in his situation when he was younger, right? Yeah. And so you see people like trying to, I don't know, like make up for the things that happened in their childhood. And I see the same thing for me too.
Yeah. It's so important. And I don't know if you were at the 7-figure agency when I was up on stage and I talked about, some of my background and what I've been through as a single parent, raising 2 children by myself, and some of the struggles. It's so important to help. And that's why, I give back. That's why I'm involved in children's charities and whatnot. So it's so good. And we're probably just about out of time, but there's a couple more questions that I'd like to ask. And this is forward-thinking stuff because you're so in tune to what's going on. What do you think are the most significant trends or changes over the last few years? And then it's a 2-part question, and then going forward. And I know what going forward is going to be, but over the last couple of years, and then going forward for the next couple.
I think in digital, there's a dismantling of all channels, because all channels behave, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all of them behave on the same dynamic of the more users are there, the more ad revenue is generated for the network. So it doesn't matter if it's Threads or YouTube or Instagram Reels, they're all on that same dynamic, which means they lead down the same path of advertising supported growth. Users are never paying $10 a month to not have ads on Facebook or whatever the next. There'll be another social network after TikTok in a few years. That's what it is. There's a pattern here, right? Yeah. There's so many of these channels or networks, as you call them, that all rely upon the same mechanics of ad-driven, that's why lawyers increasingly have all the billboards, that you see the same principles work across all of them. And people have not realized, but I've seen this for over 10 years. You can go look at my podcasts or speaking or articles. I've been saying this for over 10 years. The 3 stages of the funnel, awareness, consideration, and conversion, are exactly the same across every single network. I don't care if it's LinkedIn or TikTok, it's exactly the same. The advertising is exactly the same. They use the exact same terminology. That means that whether it's search or social or some new AI implanted social network thing, when they have a new thing that, Elon Musk in the brain, they're going to use the same principles. Therefore, if you produce content, real content off the cell phone, of your stories, of your staff, of the intakers, of the founders, of whatever, of these 3 stages of the funnel, you'll be able to cover every single channel at once. You're not making content for YouTube or Instagram or GMB or whatever. You're making content for the user. And that gets repurposed into all the channels. Then that's what we've been teaching inside 7-Figure Agency, is preparing people for this. That the idea of the content factory is the figurehead, the people who are on camera, whatnot, the clients, but that's stage 1, the production of the content. The processing of the content is so it can be repurposed in the other channels. So it can be posted stage 3 and then promoted stage 4, the dollar a day concept, which we teach on the promotion. So increasingly, you're going to see this weird dichotomy where there looks like there's more noise because there's more social media channels and more AI tools and all these crazy things that are going on. And Dennis, have you seen this? And Josh, have you seen this one tool? And yes, it's amazing. There's all this noise on one hand, yet on the other side, nothing's changed and it's all exactly the same.
It's the same path.
Yeah, you take care of your customers, that's going to show up in your reviews. That's going to power your LSA. That's going to make you rank better in SEO. You just have to document that and process it so Google can see that. I did a search for Josh Konigsberg, and I see you have a stub of a knowledge panel now showing up. That wasn't there a few months ago. Have you Googled yourself?
Not recently, no.
Do you know that you have a knowledge panel that shows up now when you search your name?
I did not know that. Wow, my team's doing a great job.
Yeah, right. and so it's not that anyone was working on getting your knowledge. By the way, you need to go claim that knowledge panel. Get Google verified, they claim the knowledge panel.
Maybe my team did. I'll find out.
Maybe they did. I mean, they haven't claimed it though. Okay. My guess is they haven't done anything, but because you have a podcast, because you're speaking, because you're showing up in more places, Google sees a signal that when we look at Josh Konigsberg, there are many other Josh Konigsbergs, as you know, but you rank number 1, and most of the entities that show up on your name are you, although there's other Josh Konigsbergs that show up. Yeah, but you don't show a full knowledge. Like if you Google me, you'll see this full knowledge panel with all the cards and all the other stuff. Yeah. But that's because you have built a reputation over time. In the last 3 or 4 years, you have gone on this journey and you've built your reputation. You do a great job with Law Firm Marketing Pros. I don't need to say that. It's clear on Google, especially with all the videos on YouTube, because the press releases that you do honoring other experts, that's all showing up. That's you doing it, Josh. It's because of you.
Well, thank you, Dennis.
But there's some things your team needs to do to make sure that that full knowledge panel shows up and everything's linking properly. And and like all that needs to.
I will definitely get with them tomorrow on that for sure.
And you should get knowledge panels for all your clients, because anyone who's a billboard lawyer, TV lawyer, I think people are going to Google so-and-so's name, right?
We do.
Wouldn't it be better if a whole knowledge panel showed up?
Yeah, we do that. We have practitioner listings for all of our clients, in addition to the business listing. So we
But if I Google their name, I should see a knowledge panel which dominates the entire screen, right?
So isn't it over to the right side of the screen?
Well, it'll make kind of an upside down L. So on the right, you'll see that, and you Google my name and you'll see it. And on the top, if it's done properly, you have all the images and all these colored cards.
Okay.
That's what we want to show, because then we've dominated the whole thing. And then the filters will show, the name of the firm, all these other pieces there across the top. So instead of like news, shopping, travel, whatever, it'll say so-and-so law firm, the name of their partner, the city there, it'll say that all these other things related across the top. Mm-hmm. Like Google me and you'll see that.
Yep. You taught me something about SEO today, Dennis. I'm blown away.
I learned something about SEO every 10 minutes.
Stuff to keep up. Okay, so what about looking forward? So what can our audience anticipate happening in the next 3 to 5 years? Because I believe we're going to see dramatic changes, not only online and not only with digital marketing, but with our lives.
Yeah. I think the AI is going to kill everybody, like in Hollywood. No, I'm kidding. That's what people would have you believe. No, that we're many years from AGI and these kinds of things, but I believe that we're heading into a world of UBI, universal basic income, where the self-driving machines and the supermarket scanning and the truck driver, like all those sorts of things that humans shouldn't be doing, you'll see increasingly automated. And you've heard the phrase, at first slowly, then suddenly, which means it just starts to get, like it's moving slowly, and then all of a sudden the curve goes asymptotic. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to see in the next 5 years. And people are going to be caught off guard with how fast all these different tools, like the AI right now is just like generating words, right? That's what generative AI is. Watch what happens when you're ordering food, when you're like all the daily activities can be automated when the machine is taking action instead of right now just generating words. That is happening soon.
And it's going to happen at light speed, in my opinion.
When it happens, it's going to happen quick, and it's going to take us all, and it's going to be like one of those Jurassic Park sorts of scenarios where we didn't plan all these unexpected effects, secondary, tertiary effects.
That's right. I agree with you. So, okay. So just to wrap it up, do you have any other nuggets of wisdom to share with the audience?
Own your own marketing. That's the number one thing. You need to own it. Trust your vendor. Take them out to dinner. Do all those nice things, right? Send them gifts. They're nice to you and all that. But you need to own your own marketing. You need to have control. It doesn't mean you have to become a digital marketing expert, but you need to own the assets, and you need to learn how to put in a framework to hold people accountable to the exact same set of metrics, including your internal teams. So if you have multiple vendors, especially necessary because things will fall between the cracks between these different vendors. And I'm biased, but I believe the data is how we keep a fair scorecard and keep people accountable, because otherwise there's politics and all kinds of nonsense.
So that's a great answer. And I'm just going to take it one step further. And what I've been teaching my clients and prospective clients is that the most valuable piece or the most valuable digital marketing asset they have is their database.
Yeah.
Because right now, they're relying on rented real estate, whether that rented real estate's a billboard or a bus, or whether that's Google or Facebook or YouTube. That's all rented real estate.
Yeah.
So build the database.
Your owned assets, right? That's right. Your website, your customer list, your CRM, reaching out to you. Treat it like a bank account. Every client you've ever had, they're your assets because they're talking about you.
That's right. Great advice. Well, Dennis, it's been great to have you. Dennis Yu, author of 16 books, 3 best-selling books, as a co-author with Perry Marshall. That's Google ads, Facebook ads, and now TikTok ads. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining. Signing off for now, Josh Konigsberg, Law Firm Marketing Pros, and the Behind the Bench podcast.
Thanks for listening to another fabulous episode of Behind the Bench. I hope you take action on some insight and tips you learned today. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share.